Good evening and welcome to Chlorine Callaloo right here on Trinbago Freestyles Facebook Live. We're also streaming live on the RWB Center of Excellence Swimming Pool page, also on YouTube on Trinbago Freestyles. Welcome. We have a very packed show again for you today. Hope everybody is keeping safe. You know, we hit that 500 death milestone in COVID, so we hope everybody is following the protocols and doing the best to keep you and your family safe. We have 1 hour away from curfew, so hope you're almost home because the police ain't playing. Right, so thank you again for tuning in, and we'll get right into our first segment, which is our Chlorine Champions. Right, so good. Delroy, Tyrrell, good evening.
Good evening.
Right, so on screen we have Mr. Delroy Tyrrell of Tidal Aquatics. He recently was featured in a swim article where he attained a scholarship to the Lindsey Wilson College. I got that right?
Yes, you did.
Right, so first of all, congrats on your achievement. What you intend to pursue when you go to Lindsey Wilson?
I'm studying biology because it's a biology course that I'm planning to study.
Okay. So how did you manage to get a scholarship during the pandemic?
It was a lot of online work and a lot of research. So I literally would spend hours at my computer just looking for different scholarships from this school and elsewhere.
So Lindsey Wilson was the one that came up. What attracted you to that college?
I was really shocked at how many international students they had, and they had a really big. They were very big on family atmosphere. That was the 2 words I kept hearing from the college was family atmosphere, and they seemed to have a really good team spirit on campus.
So you decided that all right, you want to go to college. How did swimming assist you in achieving your goals, inclusive of this scholarship?
It really gave me another avenue to get to this place instead of having to rely on, let's say, only academics. So it opened up another pathway for me because the scholarship also included being an athlete. So it opened that new path for me to gain other types of scholarships rather than just purely academic.
And before I forget, let me put on my specs, because actually this segment is sponsored by Visual Eyes. So we would like to thank the kind folks at Visual Eyes, Trinity, Shagonas, and Curep. You can call them. They're still open. One of the few businesses that are allowed to be, so you could go ahead and support Visual Eyes for all your visual needs. So, Mr. Tyrrell,
Yes.
I was seeing Guyanese papers and I see in Trinidad papers. So, are you a Trini or Guyanese?
So I really hope that my Guyanese friends or my Trinidadian friends are looking at the same time. But I was born in Guyana, so I have a Guyanese passport. I support Guyana for CPL. I don't support Trinbago Knight Riders. So
okay, well, that's the end of this interview here tonight.
my apologies for that, but I would say I'm both. You know, Trinidad. I was taking
Listen,
Trinidad.
I asked you a question. Are you a Guyanese or a Trini? How are you saying both? All right, I'll allow you to pass. I want you to give it to Guyana again. So, right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So, I saw in on the Swim article they made references to backstroke. So, did you choose backstroke or did backstroke choose you?
That's really interesting because I started off swimming almost everything. So I swam from 50 freestyle all the way up to 1500, and I swam fly, back, everything. But I always felt more confident every time I went to some of my backstroke events. And after a while, I fell in love with the stroke. So it was a mutual love.
A mutual love. And How do you and did you feel about the ability to train during this COVID-19 pandemic?
It wasn't easy because obviously as an athlete you have like a routine, so you get up at a certain time, you go to training, you have all these plans set up, and then all of a sudden it's just cut. It's almost like a shock on your body because you're no longer active, you're no longer doing anything, you're just sitting there. So it really takes a strong mind to work through that. It's been really hard.
So you have a strong mind?
I would say so.
Right. Since you have that and you were able to overcome, what would you advise like the younger swimmers? I mean, you're 18 now, so you're an adult, so be the senior athlete, and how you would encourage younger swimmers?
I would say you have to keep in mind your goals for the pool, and you have to work on land for that. So for example, if you want to return to the pool, your goals are to get stronger, then I think you can do a lot of work in your house to get stronger. There are a lot of different exercises. There are a lot of different things you can do to aid you to get back in the pool, like, flexibility, stretching a lot, making sure you work on your diet. Don't let your diet go. Build a routine in that aspect outside of the pool.
Right, so if you're now joining in, this is the Chlorine Champions segment with Delroy Tyrrell, sponsored by Visual Eyes. Delroy was recently featured in a SwimFam article where he got a scholarship to Lindsey Wilson College. Where that college is, Delroy?
It is in Kentucky.
Okay. So he's going when are you going across?
It's supposed to be in August, around the 20th of August.
You have an exemption?
I think the only thing that was necessary to leave was just a test or a vaccine. So either one of the two. So you either had to have a negative test or to take the vaccine. So.
No problem. So we're going to ask you some fun questions here. So for people to get to know Delroy a little bit better. So, okay. All right, first question. Which computer is better, a HP or a Dell?
HP, because I'm using an HP laptop right now.
You're supposed to say Dell because you're Delroy. I mean, come on. Yeah.
Very,
anyway,
very
1500 free or 400 IM?
1500.
All right. You prefer to surf on the sand or surf on a tidal wave?
Surf on a tidal wave because big up tidal wave, yeah.
All right, now this one, you almost got kicked off the program once, so this is a second chance to redeem yourself.
All right.
Chicken curry or curry chicken?
Chicken curry.
You swam for who, Trinidad or Guyana? Which
Trinidad I swam for Trinidad and Tobago, and I will say chicken curry very proudly.
Wow, I'll have to have a talk with your coach about this.
That's all right. That's all right.
And just do it or our very best always?
Our very best always.
All right, Mrs. Saint will be happy to hear that.
Yes, she will be very pleased.
So this again is Delroy Tyrrell. We're here on Chlorine Champions. I want to ask you a hard question. So you're 18 years old, right? So if you're running swimming in Trinidad and Tobago, what one change would you make to make it better?
I think I would focus on development of the athletes. So I think I would have like a lot of camps. I think I saw RWB doing something like that, where they had like camps for the younger ones, or carrying them to different pools, carrying them to different clubs to show them what club swimming is about, and then maybe having some club activities, like some camps for the older ones, like national swimmers, with maybe, I don't know, swimmers like George Bavell or Dylan Carter or some of the other prominent Trinidad and Tobago swimmers, or even swimmers from the Caribbean, just to try to raise that level of the standard of swimming itself.
And Delroy, the floor is yours. Any final words for Trinidad and Tobago?
Final words, I would say that
you're not going to die or anything, but just saying.
Yeah. I would probably say it's chicken curry and go Guyana.
Hold on.
Go Guyana. Yeah, speak for my final words. So I have to give you my final words. So my final words are go Guyana, Amazon Warriors, and chicken curry to the bone.
Say something about swimming so we could like you a little bit.
I've really enjoyed swimming for Trinidad. It's been an experience. Like it's been 9 or 10 years swimming on the Trinidad and swimming for that flag, and it's been enjoyable. I can't wait to do it on a bigger stage now at an international level.
Well, if you're going to for Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes, for Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, the first thing you have to do is curry chicken, all right?
All right, if you say so.
All right. Well, again, we'd like to thank very much Delroy Tyrrell and wish him all the best as he goes across to the Lindsey Wilson College in Kentucky, and continue to keep safe.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So that was Delroy Tyrrell of Tidal Wave Aquatics. He earned a scholarship to go to the Lindsey Wilson College in Kentucky. Up next, we'll have our Callaloo Chronicles segment, but before we go into that, we'd like to thank our sponsors of this segment, Visual Eyes, and remember to check out them 3 locations in Trinity. Gosh, I'm forgetting locations, right? Trinity, Chaguanas, and Kira. All right, so thank you very much, and we're going into our next segment, which is our Callaloo Chronicles. Right, good evening and welcome to Cardesha Lyons. Good evening and welcome to Chlorine Callaloo.
Good evening, thank you for having me.
All right, so Cardesha Lyons, you're still a former national swimmer, or are you going to see any water again?
Water again?
Right.
As a former.
Right.
Like a distant thought.
A distant thought or a thought at all. Anyway, Cardesha Lyons was a former national swimmer, and she now owns and operates her own swim school, which is the Wave Swim School. Good evening again, Cardesha, and thank you for joining us. So let me start asking Coach Cardesha to talk to swimmer Cardesha. So what would have Coach Cardesha done differently with swimmer Cardesha?
The main thing I definitely have told swimmer Cardesha was when you go into competitive swimming, make sure that you know the reason that you're doing it for, right? And whatever the reason is, make sure that it's internal. It's an internal motivational factor. You have and not too much external, right? Too many times people go into the sport for the wrong reasons. They see the glitz and glamour of the traveling, going by the pool for friends, and all these other different things, but they never actually really sit down and really think and ask themselves what's the reason they in this in the first place, right? And that's a very important thing that persons have to consider before they even step into the competitive world.
Right. So do you think Coach Cardesha probably would talk to Coach Cardesha's parents, well, swimmer Cardesha's parents, and tell them how to manage expectations, things like that? Do you think? Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, the number one question I ask persons after they swim before they even come in, the number one question in the orientation process when they join Wave Swim School, the first thing I ask is, what is the reason you're joining swimming for? Right? Even though it is learn to swim, I need to know where their mind is at. Right? So yeah, that is very important.
So you were a national swimmer, and when you did your studies, you did sports and recreation management as your degree. Why did you choose that field?
I honestly just like the environment, the energy, everything about it. I mean, I grew up in swimming, and I wasn't just the person who would just show up to practice. My entire family's in swimming, right? So I would literally grow up by the pool. Whenever there were swim meets, I would be in the office with my mom late or 11, 12 o'clock at night, and she would be the one begging me to go home. But I'm like, no, we need to finish prep this and all those things. I just love being in the environment and the energy that the sport brings.
So that's why I continued to do that degree, to do sports and recreation management.
Right. So the thing is, I didn't exactly know what I was going to do in the field of sports and recreation management. I just knew that I had to be in it. Quite honest.
Fair enough. So you came back. Is it that you started the wave swim school one time, or you had other endeavors?
I came back home not exactly knowing what I wanted to do in my life yet, because I still needed to figure that part out, right? But in the meantime, while I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, I did get the opportunity to teach, coach. A lot of persons would just reach out to me, because I did have some experience before, because I was doing it since I was probably 14, 15 years old, just as like a part-time job, or like a summer vacation thing, right? So while I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do in my life, when I came back home from college, people would call me and tell them, oh, I have a house, I have a pool, come teach my children to swim, and it would just go on from there. And that's how I got back into swim field.
So you moved it on from a hobby and you built it into a business.
Yeah.
Why go that extra step? Why not continue it as a hustle?
To be quite honest, I'm going to be completely frank with you all.
Yes.
There's money in learning to swim.
Wait, what?
There's money in learning to swim. And I saw that. And that's the reason I chose to do it. Right? Beyond that though, the reason I even chose, I was doing it as a hobby in the first place is because I actually just like the idea of bringing somebody who's terrified, timid, like out of the of water. I just like the idea of transforming them into like swans. I always like that idea, right? So which is the reason I even like teaching in the first place, right? Making it a career, as in doing it as like a full-time job. As I said, there's money to swim, so I decided to do it. But that's not the reason I decided to stay, or that's not the reason that drives me to. That's not even the reason that drove me to even start Wave Swim School. What was it, in particularly, is the fact it has to actually do with competitive swimming, right? And the disconnect that there is with competitive swimming and learn to swim, right? There are a myriad of opportunities that competitive swimming offers, right? And I'm not just talking about making a national team, traveling the world, none of that. I'm talking about life skills that you could take away into your college and adult life. And the reason why people want to hire athletes in the first place, I'm talking about that, right? The problem with it, however, in competitive swimming, so many people drop out, right? And what for that, right? And there's a disconnect, I believe, is a lot of people go into these sports, go into competitive swimming, not knowing what it is they're going to meet. They blindly walk into it, not nearly prepared for what it is, right? And I believe us as swim coaches and swim schools out there, right? We need to form that connect, right? And I'm talking about technically, physically, mentally, emotionally. We need to prepare these parents and these kids before they go into and like tell them what it is, tell them what competitive swimming is about, and prepare them, right? And it is, and as I said, competitive swimming has so many possibilities and opportunities, and I will never regret doing it. Too many people drop out, too many people are unaware of positives in it, because as soon as they see the negative, and the thing is, right, it's not that it's negative, they're just, as I said, they're just not prepared for it. And that's the reason that we even start Wave Swim School in the first place. Yeah.
You can tell that you're into it and you're giving all your passion.
Oh, yes. This is a topic I am extremely passionate about. Ask any parent. I will hold a conversation with them for the entire hours. I will go on and on about this.
So somebody telling me, I don't know if you have some paid promo people out there, they're telling me you have a Wave Swim shop too.
Oh yes, I do. We do have a Wave Swim shop. We're on planting seeds. Yeah, so if you want anything, you can go get it there.
Where are you all located, Wave Swim School? Where you operate out of?
All right, so we operate out of private residences in South Oropouche, Trinidad and Tobago, and Launch Park, Chaguanas. Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't exactly give the exact location as it's a private residence. Yeah. But if you do want to know, just contact us for more information.
And how they could, I know they could follow you on Facebook and Instagram at Wave Swim School. Any other contact for the school?
Yeah, you could, we actually have a website, waveswimtt.com. You get every single thing there. Anything you want to know about Wave when it comes to costing and everything, registration.
How many clients served? I checked it out.
Oh yeah, so there's everything there and things still to come, but you go on waveswimtt to start off and then go from there. If you have any questions, our email or our number is on the website. You could always contact us and we get back to you as soon as possible.
So you spoke about learn to swim, you spoke about competitive swimming. Do you think we need to have an integrated program of learn to swim and competitive?
Definitely, right? So let me give you an example. So currently at Wave, we have swimmers from all over the country, starting from like Point Fortin, Palo Seco, Pinal, Princestown, Chabonas, Las Lomas, St. Augustine, and Arima, right? Me as coach of Wave Swim School and the other coach, right? We know if one of our parents come telling us, oh, my child is really interested in this competitive swimming thing, what to do, right? I know where they could go, right? So I need to contact these swim clubs in those areas, connect with those coaches, ask them what it is they're looking for in the summer, because as I said, what I was talking about before, the disconnect that there is, we need to have the connection there, right? So when I reach out to these swim coaches and stuff, and I do this a couple of times, so a couple summers that we already had, I ask them what it is they're looking for, and I have to make sure that they're prepared for it, right? So there must be some kind of connection there.
What do you think needs to be done though? Well, you talk about it already, kind of, but what do you think needs to be done in the learn to swim industry to become more attractive as a stable form of employment?
Pay people what they are worth, right? That's the first thing of all, honestly. Pay people what they are worth, not what you believe people could afford, not what you believe not what other people think that they are worth. That is like the number one thing right there, because people don't really treat this learn to swim thing as a serious business. It is, right? So you need to pay people what they're worth, right? Parallel to that though, people coming into this the industry of learn to swim need to realize that this is an actual job. They need to realize it's an actual career, right? So like for example, with we have coaches into this coaches training. They need to come to that. I tell them to update their log. Like when I say these things, they need to jump on it, right? You can't tell me, oh, I just have class like in the afternoon. I have to teach for 30 minutes. Teach that time. Tell them good riddance until next week and bye-bye. No, that's not what it is. They need to understand what learn to swim is. It's not just teaching for like 30, 45 hours, whatever, however long your class is, right? After that class, you need to follow up with the parents. In our case, we do class recordings. So we need to review that footage, review the lesson plan, see what needs to be reevaluated and put into the lesson plan. First, furthermore, number one thing, ask the swimmer how class was. You need instant feedback to know what the class was after. So like, honestly, coming back to when I say pay people what they worth, you need to understand why you worth so much. And those are just some of the reasons there. I just explain why it is you worth so much, right? Once people understand this, right? They understand what they would, then it is they will demand what they're owed, right? So honestly, even get to where the point of talking about putting learn to swim again, it could be like a stable job. People need to understand the worth of it first of all.
So, okay, you say people need to understand. How are people going to understand? Do the learn to swim persons and learn to swim? Because you would do your own thing, Ashley would do your own thing, Is it that there needs to be some kind of greater national education? Because you know sometimes when you tell somebody the price for a learn to swim class and they hear the price, they will jump, right? But they'll go to the doctor $300 without thinking. So is it that to be any kind of collaborative approach to raise the profile of learn to swim?
Yeah. I see people talking about having a body for learn to swim. That could be part of it. But persons, as I said, when it comes to that, like, and I have my clientele, and I have people who see the price of my classes and go the other way. Once people realize what it is you're offering, they will stay, right? They will also be your voice to refer people to you and everything, right? So as much as what you're saying, but once people, you can. And the thing is, right? There's only so much you could do as a person. You could do some as a in school and work with what you have, right? As I say, once people realize what it is you're with, and I'm just saying this is the thing, right? Some people need to be certified, like that is like the number one thing. People need to be certified. And that's one of the reasons why people don't really take on this into something, because there are too many people coming into the sports, coming into the industry as coaches, just because they were a competitive swimmer or they were a national swimmer, and telling people that, and oh, I was a competitive swimmer, a national swimmer, I teach them to swim. So what? When you're being certified, right? You are learning more than just the regular basics. You're learning how to talk to children. You're learning how to hold children. You're learning how to talk to parents and all these things. That's the reasons they've been certified in the first place. So to regulate all this thing, as you're saying, number one question people could just honestly ask: are you certified? Where your credentials, your receipts? And that could be the start of it as well.
So if you're now tuning in, we have the very vibrant Cardesha Lyons, getting very passionate about the learn to swim. This is a segment we call Callaloo Chronicles, and we're actually winding up. And I'm giving you, I know you say a lot already, but I know you have more to say. I want you to give some final words as a former competitive swimmer, as a learn to swim practitioner. I want you to give some final words to the competitive swimming fraternity. Be nice.
Okay.
All right, go. Say what you're going to say, people.
I don't know if it's nice or not, but I just want to say it, to be honest. People need to connect. People need to share knowledge, right? Simple thing as, like, I remember when I used to swim, we used to go on field trips. We used to meet up with kids from other clubs after us to meet, right? I think people just go home now. Like after to meet, we used to go to our coach's house and have like a big line. Like people really, there needs to be that connection, that family type spirit that there once was. And the reason I'm saying this is because in competitive swimming, the ultimate goal, what I want to believe, that people join competitive swimming for, is to eventually represent your country, right? When you're representing your country, you're representing your country as one body, not as a club, right? So there needs to be harmony within us so when we go on that nationals front, people see us as one body, right? I mean, because at the end of the day, as much as it's competitive swimming, all of us really just want to be represent our country, and so how can we do that to this harmony?
Cardesha, I'd like to thank you very much for the insight. I mean, people being very forthright. I mean, we really appreciate it. And thank you for doing Learn to Swim justice here tonight. And continue doing what you do and continue to keep safe.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So that was Cardesha Lyons in our segment we call Callaloo Chronicles. Very passionate interview. And that's it for me for tonight. But coming up next, we have your favorite sous chef. Let's see what she's cooking up here today. So remember to keep safe, wash your hands, wear your mask, and watch your distance. Up next, sous chef Cindy.
Hi. Whew. Good night. Cardesha, what a refreshing, insightful, educational interview. I mean, I cannot believe how much you have matured. And I am still so immature. Okay. Hi. Good evening and welcome to Callaloo Cookup. I am your chef, sous chef Cindy Ann. And that's SUE, because if I do cook for you, there will be a lawsuit. Welcome. I have to say I agree about, the whole comparison with the doctor versus paying for swimming. And I just came up with a very, very quick solution. I hope you all like it, that we call it the Learn to Swim Pharmacy. That way people will listen, don't chime in too quickly. Don't knock it down too quickly. Just process it. Let's sit on it a bit. The Learn to Swim Pharmacy. I think that's it. So this evening, my guest is a publisher. He is a ASCA Level 2 coach, founder of Bluefins Swim Club, where he is the director and the head coach. Joining me this evening is Fabian DeFrance. Hi, Fabian.
Hi, good evening, Cindy-Ann. Are you hearing me?
I am. How are you?
I am good.
Okay, good.
Happy to be here on the
Welcome.
live.
We're so happy to have you. Welcome. So tell us, Fabian DeFrance, author, head coach, director. Tell us, who is Fabian DeFrance outside of that?
Well, Cindy-Ann, Fabian is a dad of three, full-time employee, ASCA Level 2 coach, author of the book F.L.Y, which is now up for pre-order. And I'm
Can you speak up a little bit, because I'm
that
hearing
being
that you're too
published.
soft. Are you hearing me? We need you to be a bit louder.
Okay, are you hearing me clear now?
Yes, I'm hearing you clearer. Is it clearer? Let me hear from them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, good. Yeah, so tell us. So
Yeah,
you are
so
full-time
Fabian
employee.
is a dad of three, full-time employee, right? Author of the book F.L.Y, head coach of Bluefins Aquatics that was formed 4 years ago. And I'm in the business of personal development now, aspiring personal development coach. And that's mainly Fabian in a nutshell, not diving into too much information
Okay,
and
so
not
let
wanting to
me,
take away
yes. So
too much
tell
of
me,
your time.
F.L.Y, finally loving yourself. What is the inspiration for this book? What inspired you to write this book?
I think inspiration came 5 years ago. I read one time that there's a book in all of us. And personally speaking, based on personal experiences of mine, of forming my club, Bluefins Aquatics, and all the challenges faced, all the obstacles, all the ups and the downs, and the highs and the lows, and everything in between, you know, communicating with parents, communicating with coaches, and communicating with the swimmers as well, which are the
Mm-hmm.
participants in the sport of swimming. It led me to write this book. And when COVID-19 came around last year, actually, in March, I took the opportunity to sit and write because it was my way of coping with the challenges that COVID-19 brought. COVID-19 definitely affected all of us. It brought on anxieties, fears, uncertainties, and all the plans that we had in the swim community. I mean, I personally had a swimmer ranked second overall in the country, and I was looking forward to that swimmer qualifying to represent the country at the Goodwill Games.
Mm-hmm.
And all those plans were squashed, and we had to deal with everything that COVID-19 brought upon us. So instead of just sitting down and feeling sorry and feeling all depressed and discouraged, I decided to start writing because it provided perfect opportunity for me to 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 to, to really start,
Okay.
of and put pen to paper.
So tell me, in this book, Finally Loving Yourself, you mentioned to me earlier that you are dealing with the 7 master keys. Is that correct?
Correct,
Yeah.
definitely.
So the 7
Definitely.
master keys to personal leadership, you define it as loving yourself, forgiveness, responsibility, renewing the mind, gratitude, purpose, and spirituality. Um, how does this compare to swimming? What's the comparison with swimming? Is there a link?
Well, that's a very good question, Cindy. That's a very good question. You know, you see, when you now start something, I think we all go through what is called the four stages of learning anything, right? Um, we have to go through the four stages where there's unconscious incompetence. That's the first stage. That's when an individual starts something and they don't know what they're getting themselves into, you know. And Cardesha was touching on that a bit. We get into things and we may be excited, we may be passionate, we may have the, the, the right reason for getting into it, or we're doing it for the right reasons. But we don't know. We need to acquire more skills. We need to acquire more knowledge and more understanding. So in the sport of swimming, we also have master keys. And I learned that, you know, there's four master keys in swimming. And quite often when you have swimmers, they tend sometimes to avoid the master keys. The main things in swimming that will, you know, make one go faster and make one become more proficient in swimming and make swimming effortless. So quite often the master keys are avoided or just not taken seriously because of a lack of knowledge. Maybe the coach is inexperienced, maybe the child is just trying to cut corners. But in cutting corners, and if a coach is inexperienced, what you find happening is that quite often you have to revert back to actually teaching our child the master keys over and over again. And any coach will tell you that it's very hard to go back and teach technique over and over again. It's best to get it right the first time around. So the master keys in swimming, of course, we know streamline, head position, you know, proper breathing technique, the rhythm, and of course, proper hand position for propulsion. You know, speed and all these different things come afterwards. But if we avoid master keys in swimming, then it's very hard to catch up and it's very hard to be at your best. On top of that, you can bring on injuries and a number of injuries as well. And same thing with the master keys of life. If you practice master keys of life, your life becomes easier and you can become a better version of yourself.
Well, I like to use the word, because we're going with master keys, I think we could unlock any door. You know what I mean? Because now you have all these keys. It's like an Allen key, right? Kinda. You know what I want to say to
Exactly.
Fabian, that was real quick and smart of you to go with FLY, because you could have called the book Breaststroke, but that acronym would have been difficult to come up with, you know what I mean? So you just went with the simplest, shortest stroke, FLY. Is that it?
Right. Exactly. And let me just say this. I think most coaches will agree. The fly is the most technical of sports, right? And I could have used fly as first love yourself. But think about this. Do we first love ourselves? We go through so many different challenges in life that we forget our true identity.
Right.
We lose,
Listen, I don't know
we
about you,
lose.
Fabian, but I first love myself, you understand? So, yeah,
Well, that's awesome. That is
right?
awesome.
So
That is
here's what I
awesome.
want you to do for us, for those of us who are listening. Can you read us something from the book? I want like a short excerpt from the book.
But I don't have a copy of the manuscript in front of me right now, Cynthia. But let me tell you this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you the introduction, right?
Yes,
A
tell me
couple
the
lines,
introduction.
right?
A
So it's
summary, if
March
it's not too long.
2020.
Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
of course. It's March 2020, right? And COVID-19 has hit the shores of Trinidad and Tobago. And the government is asking all non-essential workers to stay at home. You know, the COVID-19 pandemic has definitely brought on a lot of uncertainties, anxieties, and fears. And we are all trying to cope with this new pandemic, this new virus, right? It has surely disrupted all our lives. And definitely, we in our own personal lives are trying to cope with this pandemic. Um, I feel a pain for one of my swimmers who is now ranked second overall in the country. I feel a pain for her not being able um, to really compete and as well represent her country, which is she's in her final year of the 8 and under age group, and this means so much for her. It meant so much for her for the past 3 years. She has been trying to make the national team, and now that she is actually up there, ranked second. This is a blue. And we all have to find a way to cope with all the challenges that the pandemic has brought on. And definitely,
This is the introduction still? Are you still doing the introduction, or are you now? I didn't want to interrupt you. Okay.
No, that's it. That's it.
I was like, you're giving us the whole book for free. I say, but wait, this is more than an introduction. I never meet somebody for such a long introduction. After a while, I say, okay, if this is it, I'm going to buy the book. So tell me, where can people get the book? And I think you mentioned earlier about part proceeds. I don't know if you want to be the one to share it with our listeners as well. You want to give away a book?
Yes, definitely. So, usually we have the recorded live on YouTube, and Jason would usually do a great job in sharing the live, either on YouTube or Facebook the day after. So the most shares, the person who shares the most has the opportunity to have a free copy when the book is actually published. You can pre-order your copy now. The book is all about swimming. It's all about the participants in swimming, coaches, parents, and swimmers, and the different perspectives that they all contribute to the sport of swimming in Trinidad and Tobago. So the book is now up on the Publishizer platform. You can visit my page, Finally Love Yourself. The link is there as well. I think Jason has shared the link.
Yes, shared the book.
Yeah, you can pre-order your copy. There are some great bonuses where your name can be added to the book itself. You get a signed copy of the published book, and of course an invitation to the book launch.
All good stuff, man, Fabian. I like that you took the time to write and do something you love and enjoy, and so something we could all benefit from. So thank you for joining us. This was amazing. I want to say the book inside of me is a recipe book that you probably should not purchase, but I will still write it. You know what I mean? Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening. And don't forget that the only butter you can have with your toast is the butterfly. All right? So stay tuned for our next segment, Coaches Connection. Bye.
Yo.
Hello.
Hello.
What's going on?
Hey folks, what's poppin'? What's poppin'? Good night, good night. Where the boss man? Where the boss man for the night? The center of attention.
Well, I know messaging him to ask where he is.
Oh, he coming in style, boy. What trouble is this? All right, I like it. I'm feeling this. How y'all doing? Oh, Patrick.
Y'all can hear me?
Sorry, Mr. Scipio, how are you, sir?
I good. How y'all good?
Good, man. I love your program.
Yeah.
Right, so personally, I want to start off with wishing you all know Chantal McLean. I want to start off. She has been a member of our program a couple of times. Coach, a national coach, former national swimmer, Olympian for Trinidad and Tobago. I just want to wish her a happy birthday. Today's her birthday, so I just want to wish her a happy birthday as we get into our program for tonight. So introducing to you all is Patrick Scipio, right? He has a degree in education and early childhood, a bachelor's in exercise science, sports management, master's in kinesiology, sport and exercise psychology. He was the captain of the UTT basketball team and now residence doctor and coordinator for athlete retention at Denmark Technical College. So let's see, we didn't play with no. Okay. Right. So Patrick, welcome. I just want to find out because, I mean, personally, this segment is something I actually messaged some of my swimmers to join in tonight because I think it's very important and very often overlooked by both coaches, parents, and athletes at the age group. Right? So first I want to find out what made you get in. I mean, you could see you're well studied and qualified. What made you get into this field?
Good night, everybody. Sports psychology has always been like something I thought about because just for myself, for example, like especially when you put all into the physical aspect of whichever sport you're involved in. Y'all can hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you didn't get the results you wanted, for example, I always wanted to go to the NBA. I'm not there right now, but always just wondering what else was needed. And the only place I saw for myself was the mental aspect, along with just observing other athletes. Like, we score practice champs back home. Some athletes that just they have everything they need in practice. Like, there's no lack of ability. Then in games, they just can't replicate what they're doing in practice. So it's just myself and my experiences, and also just little observances made me kind of dive on the psychological side of sports.
Fair enough. Because, I mean, Cardesha spoke on it earlier.
Yeah.
Right? About persons who will come in and you forget why you're in the sport. And it often happens that we live backward, where all of us, whatever sport we excel at, you realize, wait, I could have done this so much differently. I mean, Jason asked her, put on question where he asked her, what would Coach Cardesha say to athlete Cardesha? And too many times we end up trying a Benjamin Button. So when we finish our career, we realize, hey, we missed these parts. Yeah. Right? So we went on a car engine very fast, but we ain't steering wheel, we ain't tire. We're not going to be going anywhere very fast, right?
Yeah.
So I think we really lack that. As a swimmer, I could talk about from my perspective. Everybody knows the rate of burnout in swimming is very high, right? I mean, as a 9-10-year-old, you're doing 2 sessions a day, 5 a.m. and let's say 4 or 5 p.m., right? And a lot of times it's because mommy told you to do it, right? As you get along, eventually you have more say than mommy and daddy in your own mind now. Yeah. And you don't know why you're doing it anymore because firstly, your coach, and I want to take it from the perspective of the coach too, that we need to educate ourselves.
Yeah.
Education means knowing I am not good at something. Let me put my athlete on to somebody who is.
Exactly.
I can teach them and help them visualize and all those things, right? So I think, we need to focus on the holistic approach,
of course,
of the athletes, and this is where we tie in this mental aspect. We very often overlook it, and if the head not on right, the body can't perform.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Definitely agree.
Yeah. But like you touched on a lot of good points there, Rocky. But like one of the main things you forget as athletes and as coaches as well, everything starts on the mind. So you could train 10,000 hours a day. Like if your mind isn't where it needs to be, your body wouldn't be able to perform as it needs to be. And it's a simple thing like this. Like we never want to oversimplify sports psychology, but a simple way of looking at it is you have to physically train to be physically ready. And a lot of times we think, we don't need to train our minds. Yeah, like your mind needs to be trained. For example, we always I always give the example of a trained animal. Like you could have a dog, and an untrained dog, you could take it in a field and it will run wild if it has no training, right? And if you train a dog and you take it in a field, regardless of what's going on beside it, when it hears certain calls, it'll be stand still. And it's similar with your mind. If you go into a competition and you haven't trained your mind and the pressure on, you're ready to go into the pool and swim, and pressure, as you say, like the nerves, your mind isn't ready for that. Your body's physically trained. But when you face unfamiliar circumstances, you won't be able to perform at your best. So that's a basic way of looking at sports psychology and how it run alongside with practice and with physical training.
Okay. So I think I have a question, right? So how would you now therefore like introduce like mental training, like, or performance to athletes? Because I mean, just as you mentioned that, I remember like the last episode with Auntie Bev, where she was saying like, I don't like to swim, like I don't like to compete, even as a swimmer.
Yeah.
And then it's only after like I realized that okay, it's because of that lack of like preparation for that environment. So
Yeah.
I never, so then now with my athletes, like I said, I now introduce them to competition within the control environment, which is in practice, of course. But I think they're ready and okay, they're at that level where they could handle competition. So, but that's as a sport coach, but like, what would be your like recommendation on how you introduce that to your athletes?
As you said, Asia, like one of the main things is replication of the competition environment. And one of the first things we do with athletes is something called imagery. A lot of people do it and don't even realize it's basically visual replication of whatever environment you're going to be in. So it'll be coming down to making a mental script of the competition for the five senses, where it will be, how much lanes it will be, how much people in the crowd, actually visualizing what you'll have on your swimsuit, how the water feels, how many strokes before you take your breath. All those things will be intricately detailed and put into a script. And most times I have my athlete like listen to it about 3 times to the week before they go to bed. And it's also a form of mindfulness training. And if there's one thing about the mind will always be able to tell you like what is able to how should I say this? What is able to take it and what is not. So for example, you could put your mind in an environment of fear and your body will replicate that, right? And if you replicate that environment in the imagery and be able to understand that, okay, when this time of the race comes, I'm most nervous. And at this time of the race, I'm going to take a deep breath, center myself, and focus on my skills, focus on my routine. And when the competition environment comes along, your mind already saw it. So it's just to continue that practice along with the physical training. So one of the basic skills we do is imagery, simple, trying to simplify it, but it's more detailed than that. But it's basically mentally putting yourself in the practice, the competition environment before you actually go in competition.
Is there sorry, Asia? Is there a period they suggest this for Patrick? So like you spoke about imagery and five senses. Is it that, let's say, a month out of competition, you would suggest that this is done, or is it a continuous?
So for example, I work with an athlete who has competition in September, and we started working on imagery last like 6 weeks ago. So
Okay.
the further the better. The ideal time would be about 6 weeks. But if athletes are struggling with something specific like a mental block, like if a swimmer is struggling with just getting off the starting blocks when they hear the gun or the whistle, that would be something you'll need to practice further. But it's all situation specific. But simple tasks other than specific imagery that athletes should work on almost every day is mindfulness and breath control and understanding their arousal. Because a lot of athletes mistake nerves for fear when it's actually body just being aroused and ready to go. So that's also a big part of it.
Okay. Asia, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So you mentioned like having a routine, and I try to like teach my athletes that okay, having a routine will actually help with arousal and anxiety because you go through it and that way, okay, when it's competition time, okay, you do the same thing over and over. And even if you look at basketball players before they do like their free throws, they do the same thing over and over. They say if they bounce the ball 3 times, whatever, they spin it in their hand before. Like, how important do you think having a routine is in terms of like mental performance?
Yeah, quite correct, Asia. Mental performance has a lot to do with routine building. Your body, as we all know, you hear the term muscle memory, which is, I won't go into the scientific stuff with that, but muscle memory is the same of with your mental and your physical. So having a routine is essential. I saw someone put in the chat about goal setting. That is extremely important as well. But having a routine like with basketball players, free throw shooting, because when you actually have a routine, your body kind of takes care of itself. in terms of any sport you have, when you're physically practicing and you mentally have a routine, when the competition comes, you just fall back to your routine, and it wouldn't be as much strain on you if you didn't have a practice routine beforehand.
Okay. I hope my athletes who are tuned into this hears that. So when I tell them we have the same thing every day, they understand why I am doing this. It's to help you guys mentally to be prepared for competition. Okay?
I remember like Michael Phelps, his coach, Bowman, he spoke a time and he said that Michael Phelps, one of the races, right? What he did at the time was he kind of mashed up Michael Phelps' goggles before a race. Well, in training.
Mm-hmm.
So when he goes to swim, he wanted to see how good Michael Phelps' visualization was.
Yeah.
Michael Phelps in Olympics, his goggles full up, and he knew exactly how many strokes he had to take. Right, so blindfolded, he could have done it because, as you say, his five senses were there before he was there. Right, he knew, as Kyle just mentioned. Right, his goal setting was so on point. Michael Phelps every day would visualize, and that imagery, it kind of sucks your body into, hey, this is my reality, right? And it is very important.
Yeah,
very, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have any questions for Patrick?
So with for me, my thing would be, how do you manage the eating habits of an athlete? Because that would be something that is incredibly important. From my end as a sport nutrition consultant, it is the management of the eating habits, because that in itself is a whole sector that's incredibly important, because if you're eating properly, you can perform, right? Now, what we tend to do is, as humans, we tend to associate morality with food, right? And food doesn't really have any morality. But in the mind of an athlete, right, how would you get an athlete to move away from thinking of food in a moral sense and thinking of it as, I need to be eating this amount of time? Because me as a past swimmer also, I can tell you there be times when all I wanted to eat is pizza, right? True. And that's not really the best thing ever, but I could throw it down. But when my coach would have said, yo, you need to be eating these things, that kind of stuff, it's kind of like, I feel like it's punishment, because I don't want to eat this. I want to eat pizza. And I can still clock the times, but, you know, what's your approach professional?
Just in eating could be something specific, but a lot of times athletes have to do mental reconstruction with misconceptions or different things. It could be see Fabian having a chat in terms of different learning styles. That's very essential. But just something called cognitive behavioral therapy, we do it all the time. Instead of thinking of food as this dreary something that I have to do, think of it as a performance enhancer for the athlete. Reframing it in that light will make it much easier for athletes to understand, like, hey, this is not just a task. This is actually leading to my performance. And that goes for various things. It may be athletes who like to do ice baths, they don't like to stretch. Reframing things and showing them that in all actuality, if you're not practicing these things, it's taken away from your performance. As use it as a negative consequence in reframing it for athletes. So will make them more susceptible for other modalities, whether it be eating or just other stuff like that.
Yeah. So this is like chime, because I think this will be a question for Yavniel rather than Patrick. Because Patrick spoke about like food as like helping performance. And we know, like, especially with female athletes, especially in sports where like body composition plays a major role, like swimming, you have gymnastics and stuff like that. You see that research studies show that they are more susceptible to eating disorders. As a coach, Yavniel, what are some of the signs and symptoms that coaches can look for? I mean, obviously we can't diagnose anything because we're not certified and licensed to do that. But at the same time, we want to know, okay, maybe I should bring a nutritionist on board to come and speak to these athletes, or maybe we could recommend or refer them to people like you. So what do we look for as coaches, like for eating disorders?
First,
Sorry, that's what I mean.
First thing you want to be looking at is, the first thing that you want to be looking at would be the performance decline, right? And you wanna troubleshoot immediately. Okay, is it that you're not resting well? Is the programming just too hard on you right now? Are you hitting your maximum recoverable volume and that kind of stuff? But then if it is that the athlete is not eating, you have to look at why are you not eating as you should be eating, right? And I think the why is the most important thing, especially with sports where body composition and that will then tie into body image is important. So like in gymnastics, it is a very high intensity sport, but at the same time, you have to fit into a particular body composition to look presentable to the judges in the arena. So you have to look at, is the athlete feeling pressured to stop eating because all the other competitors are looking better than they are? Do they understand the difference between on season and off season? So these are discussions you have to have with your athletes, that during your off season, you're not going to be as lean as you were on season, because during this time you're looking at correcting things. Training may not be as high intensity as during the on season, so your caloric output is less. So gaining weight during the off season is fine. So that's the kind of things you want to look at and the discussions you want to have to then decide, okay, is my athlete having eating disorder problems? Are they not eating properly, and why? I think the why is more important than what's going on, because you need to know why. Is it that because there could be a list of reasons why the athlete's not eating, but you need to determine what the why is, and then you will know who to go to from there. If it is there's a mental reason as to why I'm not eating because I don't feel like I'm looking good, or I feel like I'm trying to get this, but I'm not getting it, so I'm going to stop eating. I get depressed. Then you may have to look at a sports psychologist to get the athlete to understand, listen, it's off season. You're not going to be ripped. You're not going to be lean. You're going to be a little bit softer, but this is for a purpose. You want to get this done, then you have to go through this phase. If it is just that the athlete's probably overtraining, because you may prescribe twice a day training, but then the athlete just thinks that I need to make this standard, so I'm going to train 3 times a day, right? That could then lead to I have no appetite because I'm training so much that I don't really feel to eat. All I want to do is sleep. So those are the things that you have to look at and manage. And this is why it's important to have a team working with the athlete rather than just a coach and an athlete. Because I think when I tuned in earlier, they was talking about some athletes who just come into the sphere and become coaches because they have experience. And that in itself is important, because if you have a coach who was an athlete before, they're better able to relate to athlete problems. But it still doesn't prepare the coach for how to deal with someone who has a combination of issues that is better dealt with a team, So you need to have a team to diagnose these things.
Nice. So I have a question for Rocky, right? Because as you have mentioned, like past athletes becoming coaches, what do you see now with your athletes, like in terms of like arousal or anxiety? Like, do you now see these things, like that you could look back and be like, okay, I was there and I know what that felt like and stuff like that. Like, can you see that now as a coach?
For sure. I have one of my customers. She would go, this girl is, honestly, she's relatively young in swimming, but I believe she could give anybody a run for their money, especially in like breaststroke. She's a breaststroker. Okay. When she goes on the block, she's a very timid person. So when we go to warm up, she is crouched on the block. So I know her muscles are tired before she even starts the race. Right? When I will talk to her, I'll say, hey, come on, let's stretch out. She is, and it's only a day we sat down talking. This was after a couple of races. I was like, why are you diving like that? And she was afraid she falls in and false starts. Right? Me, if I was, hey, come on, just do this. I wanted to impose my own way, she would still be there. She has grown a lot. She's still very fearful.
Yeah.
Right? Me personally, I know the show too well. When it was Butterfly, I was Mr. Round of applause for Butterfly. When they don't get applause for doing well, they get applause for but I am getting clapped for Butterfly. And in Butterfly, I will go down in the holding. And I am Usain Bolt. I am Mr. T-Tricks talking with everybody. When it's breaststroke, I know I have something to lose because I was one of the top in my age group in breaststroke. And I know, hey, I had to be focused.
It's business, right?
To me, actually, not performing as well as I could have because I was spent before the race. I so robust, I forget everything. I'm tired. By the time I some 25 meters, I am on. And that's why I was very excited about this program tonight with Patrick and Yapi, because I realized that as coaches, we focus, honestly, we are society high on correlation. Mm-hmm. When I say correlation, we want to see, all right, the time's done, right? But we don't know how we're going to get it. So we think, all right, if I see a nail and all I know is how to pound with a hammer, I'm going to pound it with a hammer. And if it's a screw, I will still pound it with a hammer, not knowing how to use a screwdriver.
Exactly.
Right? And I realized that, hey, you know what?
Exactly.
We need to really try to understand that all parts are trying to move forward. Because I tell you, my mind as a swimmer was not where it should have been.
Yeah.
Right? When I feel like the pressure on, I know people say that, hey, the nerves helps to build adrenaline. But there's a time where you cross the board and I think it becomes stressful. And then before I dive in the pool, I feel like pressure.
But you see, the thing is, Rocky, like, and I'll even add to that, like, the good thing is that it is not just you alone feels like that. And I know, I'm not sure if everybody know, but recently, Naomi, she dropped out of a competition due to mental health reasons. So, you know, like, it's not just like your competitive swimmers or pre-competitive, it's actually a lot of pro athletes and college athletes and these people who we think have it down pat, not knowing that, okay, you know, they go through the same thing that any other athletes will go through, you know. So, and I think it's so important to, like, for mental health, especially with athletes, that I don't think we give it the credit that it deserves, and we don't sit and we don't spend enough time, like, with these young athletes, you know, like, introducing these things, simple things like imagery, all these little things that we could help them introduce in competition, like, a simple thing like that could do so much for their mental health. So I want to hear, like, Patrick, what is your, like, thoughts on Naomi? Like, what do you think?
Naomi is well, before I get to Naomi, I saw a question from Joseph in the chat for a long time. He wanted to talk about hitting the wall. In terms of hitting the wall, a lot of coaches are not aware of it because as coaches, I myself as a coach, we push athletes so far because as Rocky said, we understand correlation and not causation, right? So one of the things with hitting a wall is hard to get out of at that point in time, and it will take time. Something we do is called backward training, trying to understand when the athlete started feeling like this and try to kind of go back to the initial feelings of this. And basically what we do is mental reframing in terms of how to put it in an easy way. The athlete will have to kind of create not create identity, but understand their identities is separate from their athletic identity. Because sometimes what the thing that causes burnout on people and athletes hitting the wall is not separating their athletic performance from who they are as a person.
That's very true.
And that's kind of a segue to some of the things that Naomi may be experiencing because one of the things on her story is she started getting serious depression when she first won her title, right?
Yeah.
One of the things when athletes, just from my experience, they don't have a separate, they aren't able to separate their athletic identity from who they are as a person. When they either underachieve or overachieve, they experience mental problems. Because sometimes when you overachieve, it's like, all right, I am this great athlete, I achieved this, and now what? I feel so empty. It doesn't feel how I was supposed to feel, and that might cause depression, social anxiety, and stuff like that. Also, when you don't achieve what you're supposed to as an athlete, you also go down the same road with being like, I'm an athlete now, I didn't achieve what I was supposed to. And you start correlating yourself to what your athletic achievements are. So that's just in terms of one of the standpoints you will take in terms of hitting that wall is trying to let athletes realize that they have an identity outside of their swimming, because what happens is they get burnt out from time, both of them been, and for what Rocky was saying, you train in the morning, you go home, you take a rest, you come back in the evening, and you take that burdens with you. One of the things we practice is something called parking. It's basically leaving stuff where they're supposed to be. It's a very practical thing. So you'll practice, you go home and you'll be like, all right, you have something that you'll touch on the pool or something, say, I'll leave this session here, I'll come back and deal with it later. And those simple psychological things practiced over time could reverse the physical and mental strain from overexertion. But back to Naomi, that's a very interesting thing. Pop culturally, we have accepted mental health as something like as popular now. But as you can see in my estimation, from how the board handled it, it was very reactive. They fined her and then supported her when she came up with the statement, which is crazy, right? Instead of seeing it as someone who is, same way she could have been physically injured, she is mentally injured right now, and it should be treated as such. Even just asking simple questions, not finding her and then being like, "Oh well, you have a mental problem. Let's try to clean it up." It's tough because, as I said before, it's pop cultural acceptable. We're really not doing deep dives into the whys and how we could classify mental disorders, some mental strains and stuff like that. It's tough. It's tough in general, but I didn't like how they deal with it, and I think she had the right to take time off and really deal with her mental illness, because it is an injury, even though we can't see it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. And same thing. Like, what are your thoughts on it as well?
Firstly, I want to just touch on the issue of Patrick and Yavi were talking, and Patrick, when he was talking, he brought up two things: separation of skill and self. Right? I'll give an example. When I was a swimmer, my parents were very supportive. I mean, in everything, my parents and I are very close still, and they are very supportive. And when I was swimming, my father and I like this. Mommy, we like this to the word. But yeah, my dad and I like this. Right? And I always felt a pressure. Not that my dad put any pressure on me. I always felt like I wanted to impress daddy. And it backfired on me many times. When I see daddy there, I just don't want to impress him. It throws me off of my game. Right? And it's a big point that you brought up with separation of, because I would sometimes feel like I swam badly, I failed my father as a son. Right? And that put undue pressure on me. Not that he put it, I put it on myself. Right? And you also, but when you're on Yavi was talking, you also spoke about reaffirming to the athlete. Right? And I think that's a big thing where, I mean, I didn't realize it while I was a swimmer. Only in my latter years, I realized I put this pressure on myself. Right? And I think we need to learn to find the roots of the issues. So if I had someone there to ask me, hey, or just to notice, I find just, I mean, in goal setting and tracking, you realize, but wait, you're swimming good, but when your dad come and see, you change up a little bit. All right? And then I could break it down to myself, or he could break it down to me, hey, well, you know, use my partner, X, Y, and Z. And just a simple example. That I put burden on myself as I swim badly, I'm a bad son. Right? And I just needed that, I suppose, reaffirmation at that time that, hey, you know what? It separated the two. Right? That's here. And you are your best son you could be. So it's two big points. But back to the Naomi. I agree with what she did. Right? And I believe that, hey, you know what? It was tricky for me at first when I read it, because I was wondering, should they have tried to train her to be able to be more conversant, so to speak, or be more open, outgoing, right? But then at the end of the day, so it stems back to, did she receive the necessary training to be able to cope with the environment? Right? So, I mean, everybody talk about it at, hey, she needs to withdraw. But I wondered, was the correct foundation set initially, right? But as Patrick said, I saw articles kind of trying to dumb it down and make it look like, oh, she's weak and mental health. And I was like, I mean, we still at that era where we still don't put value to somebody's state of mind, right? And you see it daily where persons, they go up on drugs and different things because that pressure built up, right? And I applaud her for taking that stand to see about herself, because if she had a hamstring injury, she wouldn't go out there and play and jeopardize her future.
Yep.
So she knows that, hey, you know what, as this slippery slope, right, I could be heading down here. Better I go and take time for myself, regardless of what I mean. As for fans, and she handled it well. She apologized.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And to me, it's so crazy that she had to apologize for not being well. You know, like she had to apologize to the world because she thinks that, okay, her mental health is not to the best and she needs time off. And to me, like, I was even looking at, like, I was thinking as an athlete like you, she's how old? 24? And she is always under the microscope. She had, like, she's the top paid female athlete. Like, again, and what Patrick said, maybe she just was like an overachiever. Maybe she didn't think that, okay, she would have been this at this age. Maybe she dreamt about it and thought about it a lot. But now that it's coming true, she herself said she's an introvert. And she looks like an introvert. Even when you see her talk in press conference, she's very shy. Her shoulders are rounded. You know, she doesn't like look into the camera. So you could if you know what you're looking for, you could tell that, okay, she's not that outgoing, social, brave person. So to me, I really agree with her stance and taking a stance and saying, well, I know I'm not well. The money doesn't matter, the title doesn't matter, the trophy doesn't matter. I am taking care of myself, and you know, I'm opting to get out of this tournament. And I really commend her on taking that stance. And I wish more athletes could do that, because like so many things could go wrong. Again, like Patrick said, you don't see the injury, but not because you don't see it, it doesn't mean that it isn't there. You know?
Yeah.
So that's my take on it.
Yeah.
Like
because, like, you know, she is the, I think, four-time, at 23, 24, she's the four-time Grand Slam champion, right? That's a massive accomplishment. That's huge in itself, right? But it's, what I find admirable about it is the fact that she recognized that there is a kink in my armor that I'm sure a lot of us here decided to push through, and it made things work later on. So like me, for example, I left swimming, then went to water polo, and then to powerlifting, and I competed twice in the North American Championships. I got silver and bronze in those things, but I trained through a grade 1 lat tear, a grade 1 tomola tear, a ligament rupture. What can I say about training, right? I shouldn't have, but there was the pressure of, no, I have to, as Rocky was saying, I have to make my parents proud, because I got this far. They already invested this much in me, so now I have to perform. And you know, then when you come back, there's a mental space that you are constantly in, where you just want to attack.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with just how we were trained. We were trained to work around things, work through things, press through this obstacle, just work around that kind of stuff. And I don't think that our set of athletes were trained to understand ourselves better, in that, are you in pain? Pain is not a good thing. I need to recognize that pain could be physical, pain could be mental, as in you're not good upstairs right now, you're having a hard time. Do you need a break? And because there is the pressure, I think in the last the last segment that I've spoken about, me, I came off Instagram for a little while because of the fact that I needed a break. And some people was like, that's crazy, you can't do that. But I'm like, I needed a break because I know that, okay, I am extending myself too much. I'm not getting it back. I'm not getting younger. You're getting older. And I think it's viewed as weakness in the sporting world because of the fact that, you know, you are already up on top of the game, so why quit now, you know? When that is the point where these micro things matter, because she could have decided to say, you know what, I'm going to train through my mental health issues, right? And then she loses a match And from there, it just goes completely down. She never wins again.
Yeah.
And
And
I think
just
that's the
to
important thing now.
no, I'm saying just to add to that, Joseph rightfully said, when she won the Grand Slam, people booed at her, and as a champ, you're young, you want to win, you're playing against your dream, your idol, and you won and people booed. Like, to me, that will definitely mess anyone up, as he rightfully said. Like,
that one of the things, just touching on that briefly, one of the things that leads to psychological dysfunctions is trauma. That is a traumatic event she went through with people booing you after winning. That is not how things supposed to happen, right?
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure I touch the question in the chat from Philippa. How could parents as coaches address shortcomings due to missing age group from pandemic? And in all honesty, that's going to be tough regardless. But the main thing is getting across to your kids or young athletes that you have to be able to control what you could control. That is the main thing when dealing with things out of your grasp, whether it be competition wise, or just in life in general. We can't. Everyone experiencing pandemic is not an isolated situation. And again, it's basically cognitive behavioral therapy, reframing those thoughts and understand that nothing you did was wrong. Understand that you continue to practice. Not even being able to practice and understand that it's out of your grasp and just controlling what you can and dealing with it, which will be in your control when the time comes. So it's tough, but it's just basically let you at least understand that they have to control what they can and just leave the rest and let it be.
Control what you could control.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope we as coaches and as athletes understanding this, because I mean, I always say as a coach, you have the future of the next generation in your hands. Not saying that you could sculpt every piece of them, but you can bring on contractors to help you with the job to get a refined product, right? And we, too many times, because we can't fix something, or because we grew up with being broken like that, ain't nobody ever correct my mental and look at me.
Yeah. Exactly. Look at you.
Rocky.
Exactly. Look at you.
People always say, I good, but you never know how good you could have been with mental health. Like people don't
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's a real wake-up call. I look at, like, you watch all the programs in the States. They have somebody there, all they do is soap in your back. And some of them are people soap in your back. They're there and they have somebody there for you to counsel you, to tell you what to eat. Down here want to say, hey, are you gonna compete with them of my little training programs? I mean, it can't compare. You have any training program in the world with all the external factors that you cannot see the direct correlation from, right?
Yeah. And and that's so true, because I mean, I think they understand the importance and they understand the value of what everybody brings to the table, and they understand what it takes to develop that holistic athlete. So it's not just mental, it's not just physical, it's everybody working together for the same athlete. And that's a problem that I have in Trinidad, because it's like everybody wants to do everything. But you have to understand, I cannot do everything. I need help. If I have an athlete and they get injured, or God forbid, they have something wrong, I will say, okay, go to this one, go to that one. Don't come and ask me, because I am not licensed to recommend anything, even like diet, nutrition. I will tell them, okay, I'll message I have somebody XYZ, I'm sending them to you. I don't know if they will message them, but I will still, pass on information. And I still think that like mental health is not something that we take seriously in the Caribbean. It's always, Trinity, something happened, oh, it's a tabanka, thing. Like, you don't know what a person going through mentally, and it's always something that we push to the side and we don't take seriously. Like, we always think, nah, she just sad, she going through something, she could be all right, you could be all right, oh God, suck it up. Not knowing that it is actually like hormonal, like something is wrong with your brain, like something is wrong inside your body internally, that this person just, again, mental blocks, you don't know what it is, depression, anxiety, arousal, like you don't know what that person is going through. And I really think that we need to like kind of step up. And again, I will always say this: give mental health the spotlight and attention that it deserves, especially dealing with athletes. And as Philippa rightfully said, especially now with COVID, where athletes have never had to deal with this before.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've never had to deal with no fans in a stadium. Like I always wonder, like how can they like play without fans? Like to me, that's like somebody who like crowds and who like on that game day, that experience. Like how do they deal with that? Even athletes now, they're home, they're not going to school. Like how do you like as children? Like, cause we coach young athletes. Like how do we now deal with that? You know, like, and I think it's something that we need to like just pay a little bit more attention to. Just dealing with that going forward. That's my 2 cents.
For sure. I see Jason's on the stairs. Jason's on the I mean, it was a real nice chat. I mean, I hope some young, if they haven't seen it yet, I hope some age group athletes are able to see this and realize you're not going through this alone, right? Yeah. You are not the only person who has been nervous about it. But as Patrick said, control where you could control. Eventually, the things you could control will grow, right? But for now, control where you could control. Don't afraid to ask a question. Tell your coach how you feel. Tell your parents how you feel. All right? So on behalf of me, I want to say good night and thanks for coming out. I'll hand you all over to the others and if Jason coming back on. But yeah, that's it. Thanks so much, folks.
Yes, you're welcome. I mean, bye, everybody.
Almost Dr. Scipio, man. I see it.
Love you guys.
Later.